The Canadian border, the finish line for runaway slaves in the United States. This was the ultimate goal, the place where they finally crossed over from slave to free. Yates County was a crossroads for runaway slaves. They could either be sent up the Erie Canal to Buffalo and cross Lake Erie into Canada, or be mailed via railroad to Rochester and cross over Lake Ontario to Canada. Already a notable historical location, the Miles Winery gained more historical importance when its current owners, the Miles family, discovered a secret room inside of a closet.
And then I started remodeling it and renovating the house. This area right here, it was a closet that was about a 4 foot by 4 foot closet, and for storage. And then this had this trap door over the stone hole here.
Small stone.
Yep.
Very spider webby. Dark. About 5 feet high. Maybe 3 feet across. Maybe 5 feet long. Very small. Dirt floor. Brick and the brick and cement walls. Just a cistern, all it is really.
It's an old system.
And it's really musty. Now, as you can see, this is a very, very small room. It would have been incredibly cramped down here if you have 6 people in here.
And the people that we purchased the property from, they originally mentioned that they used to hide the slaves in here and in the basement. And then when the Erie Canal barges would come up Seneca Lake, they'd stop in front of the house here, and they'd pick up grain and all different kinds of farm commodities. And they'd also hide the slaves on there, and the slaves would go up through the Erie Canal, up through Rochester, and up into Canada from there. And while I was cleaning this out in 1978, I came across, I swept all these pennies off the ledges, and I just put them in my pocket, didn't think anything of it. And then a week later, I was using some of these pennies to buy a pack of gum, and I noticed that they were very old. And so then I kept a lot of them, and some of them were minted by individual banks instead of the U.S. Mint things. So, but most of the pennies are different dates and everything, and these are the ones that were found inside there.
It's
Sydney Newcomb.
this one. That one's the slavery one.
It was originally about a 5 square mile land plot that came from the King of England to 2 Frenchmen.
Oh.
And then it was farmed continuously from then until present day. Miles Wine Cellars we have our vineyards all right here and in our winery. And then there's also a book written called The Penn Yan Boy that talks about the history of the house here and how it was built and stuff too. And my son Evan, he can talk about that.
So this is a copy of The Penn Yan Boy, which is a book written by a gentleman who lived here on the property and most likely was born here inside this house. Now, if you were to read through this, there are a couple sections which speak about the future slave law and how it was enacted and how this area became a hotbed for the Underground Railroad. Now, a big portion of this as well is speaking of different houses that were located very close to this house, as well as maybe this house as well as being part of the Underground Railroad.
One of the reasons this region became such a hotbed for the Underground Railroad was that the Wesleyan Methodist Church broke away from the Methodist Church over the issue of slavery. One of the supporters of the Wesleyan Methodists was Samuel Fosdick Curtis.
Throughout the village of Penn Yan, these commemorative plaques are located to help people who are visiting our village understand some of the history of this village. This plaque says 129 Clinton Street, Samuel Fosdick Curtis House. Samuel was a furniture maker, and this house is one of the few documentable sites on the Underground Railroad. Think of it, caskets, large furniture boxes, all kinds of things that you could hide a human being in. were available to them and they used them. There are books that tell about how people who were furniture makers, I don't know if they all did it, but certainly Samuel Fosdick Curtis did it, where slaves were hidden right behind these steps. Girls, I'm going to ask Philip to come over and help you guys move those steps. Pull them over this way. Those steps date back to 1833. Keep pulling, keep pulling. Okay, that's far enough, right there. All right. Move your toes, girls, that's it. As you can see, this house has a stone foundation on the inside and on the outside. Philip, that's interesting, isn't it? The stone foundation goes all around except for, look, lo and behold, an opening, a wooden frame and a wooden board covering up an opening in the stone foundation and the steps covering up the whole affair.
This small door covered the only way in to an incredibly small shelter underneath the house. This was simply the cavity between the ground and the foundation around the house. It was small, only about 3 feet tall, and it would have been incredibly cramped for any sort of extended stay. The dirt floor would have been also incredibly uncomfortable. In the shelter, there were a series of newspapers dating back to 1850 that were found in it. These papers were most likely used as bedding. And the year 1850 is significant because it was the first year the Fugitive Slave Law had been enacted. Also in the shelter, there were bones of small animals that were found in here. It is believed that the people harboring the slaves gave the slaves these small animals as food. As you can see, the stairs covering up the door were incredibly effective, and it would have been virtually impossible for a slave catcher to find them once they were in the shelter.
The need for such action against slavery all but disappeared after 1865. At this time, the United States brought an end to the Civil War that divided the nation. The end of the war saw a true abolishment of slavery in the United States, and the need for the Underground Railroad and its brave conductors was no more.
With all the turmoil going on in our world, let's all do something good. Let's all do something courageous, because Samuel and Mary Curtis were certainly courageous people, as were many others.